Genius Kids. Cultivating love for learning.
Lesson 4. Forts and Sacred Places. Knowledge acquisition. Indian architecture entered a new phase during the medieval period with the advent of Muslims. The indigenous architectural styles fused with Arabian, Persian and Central Asian architectural ones, giving birth to a vigorous new hybrid with a distinct character. Let's try to find the roots of this new style of architecture. While the early Muslim rulers were influenced by the architectural styles they had so far been exposed to in their respective homelands in Central Asia, Afghanistan, and even Persia, with their domes, plinths and minarets, they probably felt the need of some modifications on account of the vastly different climatic conditions of Gangetic India. We know the fact that geography influences architecture. Babur found the heat and dust of North India very tough. His helpless longing for the lost natural beauty of Kabul found expression in his garden architecture, the distinctive features of which came to exemplify Islamic landscaping in India. The downstream effects are all around us: Srinagar's famous Shalimar Bagh, Nishat Bagh, Chashma Shahi, the Mughal gardens at Pinjore in Punjab, and several others. It included the Taj Mahal, with its central watercourse and fountains dominating the foreground, cooling the surroundings and putting down dust. Thus, landscaping was a very significant component of Mughal architecture. Not satisfied with landscaping, Babur built dwellings with extra thick walls to present the sun's heat. Cool streams of water ran under stone floors to cool them, while khas screens along verandas absorbed the heat from the hot loo winds. The Muslims rulers were great patrons of architecture. They adapted the indigenous style by using the dome and the true arch on large scale. Qutubuddin Aibak had started the construction of Qutub Minar in 1192, which was later completed by Iltutmish. Here, arches and geometrical designs were used on a scale which was rarely seen before. Most of the buildings of this period can be divided into two categories. In the first category were the buildings built for rulers or built to serve administrative purposes. In the second category were structures built for public utility, such as mosques, temples, tanks, wells, bazaars, and caravanserais. With regional variations, these were found across the land. Rich merchants and landlords also built many such buildings, whether for charitable or religious purposes, or for commercial or even personal use. Do you know? The Golconda Fort used to have a vault where once the famous Kohinoor and Hope diamonds were stored. Engineering skills and construction. The size and shape of medieval monuments as well as the materials used tell us about the technologies used in their construction. Huge structures began appearing in the medieval period. Earlier buildings were without a dome, though they had towers and spires. Now arches and domes were common in mosques, palaces, mausoleums, etc. Let us study about some of these architectural components in detail. 1. Trabeate or Kobold, 7th to 10th century. This style was freely used in temples, mosques, tombs and in buildings attached to large stepped wells, baulis. In this style, roofs, doors and windows were constructed by placing a horizontal beam across two vertical columns. This technique was used in the construction of the screen of the Quwwatul Islam Mosque. 2. True arch. In 14th century, it is a pointed arch which is not supported by a beam but by a stone placed obliquely to form the point. The entire weight of the huge structure above the door and windows was borne by keystone arches. This form of architecture was called arcuate, that is, having the shape of a bow, curved. 3. Dome. The dome is a large area enclosed by hollow, semicircular roof. 4. Limestone cement. It began to be widely used in building these magnificent structures. Limestone cement was popularly used because of its efficiency in binding together the constituent materials. This property made it possible to erect huge structures quickly and easily. In the medieval period, construction was mainly manpower oriented. Rajarajeshwar Temple at Tanjavur has the tallest shikhar amongst the contemporary temples. Perhaps some special technique was applied in its construction. This was needed to lift a stone of 90 tons to the top of the shikhar. To overcome this hurdle, the architects built an inclined path to the top of the temple, placed the boulder on rollers, and rolled it all the way to the top. The path started more than 4 kilometers away in order to ensure a gentle incline. This ramp was destroyed after the temple was constructed, but the residents of the area remembered for a long time how the temple was constructed. Even today, a village near the temple was called Charupallam, the village of the incline. The Kandariya Mahadev temple was built in 999 AD by King Dhangdeva of the Chandela dynasty. It was so designed that an ornamented gateway led to an entrance and the main hall, Mahamandapa, where dances were performed. The image of the chief deity was kept in the main shrine, Garbhagriha. This was the place for ritual worship where the entry of common people was restricted. The Khajuraho complex contained royal temples, which were decorated with elaborately carved sculptures. Building temples, mosques and tanks, the medieval rulers built many architectural beauties. Muslims and Hindus built beautiful mosques and temples for worship. The development of architecture should not be seen in isolation. Worship places were erected not simply because of religious beliefs, they were often meant to showcase the power, prestige, and wealth of the patrons. It was common practice of rulers to earn the respect of their subjects by showing religious fervor. That is why most of the famous temples and mosques were built by kings or wealthy people such as landlords or merchants. Similarly, rulers also encouraged learned men and sons and tried to transform their capitals and cities into cultural hubs. For example, Mahmud of Ghazni transformed his capital into a magnificent city of architectural wonders and cultural sophistication. A temple was seen as a replica of a royal palace, each the residence of a supreme power, one spiritual, the other temporal. In the kingdom, the king is the head of state assisted by many functionaries such as ministers, priests, feudal lords, sub-feudal lords, clerks, treasurer, servants, etc. Similarly, in the temple there is a chief deity or deities around whom revolve many supportive and allied duties. This similarity was deliberate. It signifies that while the deity was a source of spiritual succor, the king was its earthly counterpart. As the temporal head, the king needed the same kind of devotion and unquestioning obedience that the gods received on the spiritual plane. In other words, temple architecture underscored the message that a kingdom is but a miniature model of heaven on earth. It supported the concept of divine kingship. On the other hand, Muslim rulers did not claim themselves to be an incarnation of God on earth. Nevertheless, obsequious court historians refer to the Sultan as the shadow of God. An inscription of the Quwwatul Islam Mosque says that God chose Sultan Alauddin as king because he had the qualities of Moses, Musa, and Solomon, Suleiman, the great Muslim lawgivers of the past. The rulers implemented many welfare measures, like building tanks, serais, caravanserais, etc. Making water available by building tanks and reservoirs was probably the most important of welfare works. Firoz Shah Tughlaq initiated new irrigation schemes and built many canals. The Yamuna Canal was built by him. Iltutmish constructed the Hoysai Sultani, the king's reservoir, in Delhi. Why were temples destroyed? Temples, the symbols of devotion, were subsequently transformed into repositories of wealth offered by enthusiastic devotees. Idols were plated with gold and encrusted with valuable gems and precious stones. This accumulation of wealth made temples a soft target for looters. According to Dhamma Kitti, in the 9th century, Pandyan ruler Shrimra Srivallabha attacked Sri Lanka and defeated Senai. In the course of his campaign, he plundered monasteries and seized all the precious jewels. This was a humiliating blow to Sinhalese pride. In retaliation, Sena too invaded Madurai, capital of Pandya, in order to recover the statue of Buddha. Muhammad of Ghazni raided India 17 times, mainly to obtain booty. He had heard a lot about the great wealth stored in temples. He plundered many temples, including the famous Somnath temple of Saurashtra. He even took away the massive sandalwood gates of the temple. Muhammad Ghori invaded India and sacked many towns. The destruction of religious centers was not only a symbolic act representing the invaders' political might, it also spoke volumes of the military efficiency of the invaders. It also exposed the lack of unity, alertness and military capability of the defenders. Gardens, tombs and forts. The Muslim rulers of India began constructing gardens, tombs and forts. The Mughals, in particular, made excellent progress in these fields. As we have already read, Babur made beautiful gardens in India. From that time, gardens became an intrinsic part of the design of Mughal palaces and mausoleums. The Mughal age is famous for its culture, developments, and has been called the second classical age, the first being the Gupta age in northern India. A new style of Indo-Persian architecture developed during the Mughal period. They built beautiful forts, palaces, public buildings, baolis, water tanks or wells, mosques, etc. A special feature of Mughal architecture was the use of running water in the palaces and pleasure resorts. Babur was especially fond of gardens and laid out some beautiful gardens around Agra and Lahore. Important Mughal gardens which have survived even today are Shalimar Bagh at Lahore and Srinagar, Nishat Bagh in Srinagar and the Pinjore Gardens in Punjab. A few buildings of Babur's time that have survived are the Kabul Bagh at Panipat and the Pirzada Masjid at Delhi. Humayun did not get enough time to construct palaces and forts due to his involvement in constant wars. In spite of this, he built a palace at Delhi named Din Pana. All the sources and evidences show that the Mughals were enthusiastic builders. Their massive forts at Delhi, Agra and Fatehpur Sikri are proof of their scientific techniques and precision. Sher Shah, though not a Mughal, built the Purana Kila near Delhi. He also built his mausoleum at Sasaram, Bihar, which still stands. Akbar was the first Mughal ruler with the time and resources to undertake construction on a massive scale. One of the earliest specimens that came up during his reign is Humayun's tomb, built by Humayun's widow Hamida Banu. The tomb, built on raised platform, is situated in the middle of a garden. At the entrance to the tomb is a large gateway. The tomb has both Indian and Persian architectural features. Akbar built many forts, the most famous of which is the Agra Fort, completed in 1571 AD. Made of red sandstone, this massive fort had many magnificent gates. The Jahangiri Mahal is especially magnificent and is distinctly Hindu in style. Many new buildings were added later within Agra Fort by successive rulers. Other fort palaces include the ones at Fatehpur Sikri, Lahore, Ajmer and Allahabad. A palace comfort complex at Fatehpur Sikri is considered to be the crowning achievement of Akbar's reign. He began building it in 1572 and completed it in 1580. Fatehpur Sikri has been described by Vincent Smith as a romance in stone. Built on a hill along with a large artificial lake, it included many buildings in style of Gujarat and Bengal. These included fanciful kiosks, balconies and deep caves. In the Panch Mahal, built for enjoying the fresh air, various types of pillars used in different temples have been employed to support flat roofs. But the most magnificent buildings in Fatehpur Sikri are the mosque, an immense gateway to it, called the Buland Darwaza or the Lofty Gate. It was built by Akbar to commemorate the conquest of Gujarat. The arch of the Buland Darwaza is about 41 meters high. It is one of the most imposing gateways in the world. The gate is built in the style known as a half-dome portal. The Jamia Masjid, still in near original condition, has been described by critics as the glory of Fatehpur. It is mainly influenced by the Persian style of architecture. The tomb of Salim Chishti, built in white marble, is exquisite in its beauty. Other beautiful buildings are the Turkish Sultan's Palace, Jodhbai's Palace, Birbal's House, the Khwabgah, and the highly ornamented Diwan-i Khas. Jahangir was mainly interested in painting rather than in architecture. Despite this, two buildings of his reign are famous: Akbar's tomb at Sikandra and Itmadur-Daula's tomb at Agra. The work of constructing Akbar's tomb, begun by Akbar himself, was completed by Jahangir. The tomb is located in the center of a huge garden and is square-shaped. It has 5 stories. This is a magnificent monument in many ways. It has beautiful arches and domes. But the whole structure, as Ferguson suggested, is inspired by Buddhist viharas. Another significant building of Jahangir's reign is the tomb of Itmadur-Daula, Nur Jahan's father. It is square in shape and at the 4 corners are small 8-sided minarets. It is fully made of white marble inlaid with colored stones. From this building, the style of decorative inlay work in stone, called pietra dura, inlaying of precious stone of various colors, was introduced. The tomb is considered to be the precursor of the Taj. Mughal architecture reached at its peak during the reign of Shah Jahan. Some of the finest monuments of our country were built during his reign: the Taj Mahal, the Red Fort, the Jama Masjid and the Moti Masjid, all in Delhi, and the Masaman Burs in Agra Fort. Shah Jahan's death brought the Mughal architecture to a standstill because Aurangzeb showed no interest in construction. The only notable buildings of his reign are the Badshahi Mosque at Lahore and Moti Masjid at Delhi. But Mughal architectural traditions, based on a combination of Indo-Persian forms, lived on robustly in the succeeding periods. The Mughal tradition influenced the palaces and forts of many provincial and local kingdoms. The Rajput and Muslim nobility and the rulers of Bijapur and Golconda were enthusiastic builders. The Jama Masjid of Adil Shah at Bijapur, Adil Shah II's tomb, some royal palaces, and Satmanjila buildings display an elegant blend of Hindu and Muslim styles. Quli Qutub Shahi tomb at Golconda stands out as one of the finest monuments in the Deccan. Many magnificent buildings built by Hindu rulers in medieval periods have survived. The palaces built at Bikaner, Jaisalmer, Amba, Udaipur, Jodhpur and Bikaner are known for their brilliant architecture. The palace built by Man Singh, known as Man Mandir within Gwalior Fort, is known for its grandeur. Bundela rulers built magnificent palaces at Orcha and Datia in central India. In the Deccan, 4 palaces built during 16th and 17th centuries are famous. These are Madurai Palace, Tanjore Palace, Chandragiri Palace, and Lotus Mahal at Hampi. The temple architecture can be classified in three different styles: the North Indian style of Nagara, the South Indian style or Dravida, and the amalgamation of these two styles called the Vesara. The most famous temples of the Nagara style are the groups of temples at Khajuraho, MP, and Bhubaneswar, Odisha. The Shore Temple, Mamalapuram, and the Meenakshi Temple, Madurai, are famous examples of Dravida style. Case study: Shah Jahan's patronage of architecture. There was unprecedented growth in the cultural field during the Mughal period. In fact, the art and architecture of the Mughal period represent a blend of Hindu and Muslim art traditions. With the exception of Aurangzeb, the great Mughals were great builders. The greatest of them was undoubtedly Shah Jahan. He built many forts, imposing buildings, mosques, palaces, and gardens at Agra, Kabul, Kashmir, Delhi, Lahore, and Kandahar. Some of the finest monuments of our country were built during his reign. He established a new city, Shahjahanabad, as his capital. Situated close to the then Delhi, this imperial stronghold commanded the river front. Only selected nobles were given access to the river. Today, Delhi has grown organically around it and made it a part of itself. Taj Mahal. Shah Jahan used white marble in constructing his buildings. The most famous is the Taj Mahal at Agra. This was built in memory of his queen, Mumtaz Mahal. This mausoleum was built under the supervision of Ustad Isha of Iran. It was the fruit of the labor of 20,000 men, who toiled for 22 years. Approximately 3 crore rupees were spent on its construction. It was constructed in the midst of a huge garden. It stands on a marble platform which is 6.6 meters, 22 feet, high. It has a massive dome which is 56 meters, 187 feet, high. 4 high marble minarets stand at 4 corners of the platform. Extremely beautiful inlay work, Pietra Dura, is to be found both inside and outside the Taj Mahal. Verses from the Quran have been engraved in black marble at various places. Its glory springs from its perfect balance and proportions such as few buildings anywhere in the world possess. So heartrending is its mute appeal for the lost beloved, that a poet has called it a teardrop on the cheek of time. Riverfront. Shah Jahan shifted his capital from Agra to Delhi. He established a beautiful city on the banks of the river Yamuna. Most of the nobility also rushed to construct homes on the banks of the river Yamuna. These constructions were designed in the Kar-Bagh format, but it was river-facing. Historians thus describe the complex as a riverfront garden. It must have been a stunning sight in those days, this exclusive, hushed enclave for the super-rich facing the blue, unpolluted expanse of the pristine Yamuna. It is perhaps good that Shah Jahan did not then know that one day, as an old man and toppled from his throne, he would find himself gazing wistfully through prison bars at this very scene, from the other side of the river. Shah Jahan selected the site for the Taj Mahal because it was river-facing. The Taj came up amidst a huge riverfront garden. The site for constructing the new city of Shahjahanabad was also selected because it was on the river. Red Fort. The Red Fort, constructed by Shah Jahan in Delhi, is famous for its grandeur, beauty and elegance. The Diwan-i-Ayam and Diwan-i-Khas in the Red Fort are richly decorated and are works of great beauty. The Diwan-i-Khas rightly bears the inscription, Agar Firdoz Ba Rue Zameen asked, Humi asked, you Humi asked, you Humi asked. If there be a paradise on earth, it is here, it is here, it is here. The Red Fort has become an intrinsic part of our country's history. It is here that the national flag was unfurled the day after India became free. Jama Masjid. Shah Jahan built the famous Jama Masjid opposite the Red Fort. It is made of red sandstone. This masjid is famous for its huge dome, high minarets and domes. It is India's largest and most beautiful mosque. It is simple and austere, but its very simplicity gives it the solemn dignity necessary for a place of worship. Agra Fort. Inside Agra Fort, Shah Jahan made attractive buildings such as Diwanayam, Diwanai Khas, Shish Mahal, Masaman Burs, a Lotus Burs, and the delightful Moti Masjid, which is built entirely of white marble and stands out for its purity and simplicity. For the first time, Shah Jahan brought grace, delicacy, and rhythm to the art of building. His legacy will always be remembered as the best specimens of Mughal art and architecture to ever grace the earth. Let's revise. Indian architecture entered a new phase under Muslim rulers. Most of the buildings of this period can be divided into two categories: the buildings built for rulers to serve administrative purposes, and the structures built for public utility. The size and shape of medieval monuments, as well as materials used, tell us about the technologies used in their construction. Worship places were symbols of both religious beliefs and showcase of power, prestige, and wealth of its patrons. Wealth of temples attracted many looters. The Muslims rulers began constructing gardens, tombs, and forts. Babur was especially fond of gardens. During Akbar's period, Humayun's tomb, Agra Fort, Fatehpur Sikri, etc. were built. Akbar's tomb at Sikandra and Itmadur-Daula's tomb at Agra were built during Jahangir's reign. Mughal architecture reached at its peak during Shah Jahan. The Taj Mahal, the Red Fort, the Jama Masjid, etc. were built during Shah Jahan's period. Mughals' architecture reached to a standstill after the death of Shah Jahan. Keywords: Trabeate, having horizontal beams or lintels rather than arches. Baulis, tank, well, reservoir, etc. Kiosk, a small, separated garden pavilion open on some or all sides. Burs, pillar, column. Masaman, lotus. Mausoleum, building erected over the place of burial of sultans, Mughal emperors and nobles. Pietra dura, inlaying of precious stones of various colors in walls.
Like, share and subscribe.